Okay, the format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker. Our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is Paul.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Paul. I'm an alcoholic. I found out about 10 minutes ago that I was going to do this lead, so that's awesome. I'm not normally shy from a spotlight, so I'm going to tilt this up just a little bit so it hits me a little bit more, so I feel like I'm on stage for you guys, right? That's my ego. No, but what a great meeting, what a great environment. So driving down to Manhattan Beach from up by Santa Monica tonight, and I've never been so excited to come and hear someone speak, and that's Amy, who you're going to hear after me. Her and I are from the same little small town of 85 people in Indiana, of all things, right? And we're both in California this week. I live here as well. I've been living in LA about 11 years now. I'm sorry, 11 years. 11 years. My sobriety date is March 22nd of 2015. My last day of drinking and doing drugs is tomorrow, but then I forgot, like, you weren't really supposed to do other things. And between that, like, tomorrow's date and the 22nd, I, in Indiana, smoked some weed and stuff. So I had to reset my sobriety date for that because that's just my program. So March 22nd of 2015 is my sobriety date. I was in LA when I first decided to get sober. I was on Sunset Strip going to my office. I was going to be the next reality TV star, I thought in my head, being in real estate and all, because that's just like what you dream of, being from Indiana. I just, didn't see my life past 40, and I was 35 at the time. I had everything lined up for me to do what I wanted to do, but I was miserable. Very much privileged life. I was just dead on the inside, right? So privilege on the outside, dead on the inside. I didn't think I had a spot here because, I don't know if you guys struggled with when you first came into AA. They're not like me. I have this unique story. I'm this kid from an town of 85 people, who had to hide his identity up until until I got into college, and then I could truly be myself and come out and not always have to look over my shoulder thinking I was going to get gay bashed, because that's how I grew up. Never was, but I had that fear. And if you've ever had any sort of fear like that growing up, you know what I'm talking about. So when I found my voice growing up, my voice then started causing harm to other people, right? I grew into myself. I was like 5'7" until junior year in high school, and then I grew to this size. So I still feel like this little kid. And so there's times where I'll look at people, I'm like, damn, they're tall. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm taller than them. So I'm like this little kid still stuck in this big body. But that's just a little rundown of me. But, what I want to talk about in this 10 minutes is just truly the gratitude that I have coming in on 9 years. And something that I enjoy the most about this program is when I get to see new people come in, and when I get to hear new people's story, when I get to hear their struggles and their excitement, and actually be grateful and thankful and happy for them, and not be jealous because they have this and they have that and they have this and they have that. Prior to me coming into AA, if you had it, I wanted it, but not in a healthy way. So now when I see people coming in recovery and I see that they're working the deal, that they've just hit their bottom, and now they have this light come on, and I'm just like, you got what I have, and that's freaking amazing, right? And I just want to give that to everybody that I come in contact with. Because what I've learned is that we're not all sick on the same day, So if I'm not feeling it, if I come into these rooms, I'm probably going to find someone that's having a better day than me, and a lot of times people that are having a worse day than me, so it makes me feel better about myself, right? So that's good. We come in here and we lift each other up, and that's just the real of it all. And the majority of this 10-minute is the realness of, we have this safety bubble, right? When we come in, when we go to rehab, when we go to meetings, when we go sit with our sobs, at dinner, and, but then when we go out into the real world, we have the normal people, right? And we have our partners that may not be in the program. We have this wreckage that we've caused, these relationships that were not healthy, and now they are healthy. But when we're in our bubble, it's so much easier to be of service, right? When you're in an AA environment, it's so easy because we're just around all these spiritual giants, and, we hear these big talks, and we have these circuit speakers that are like celebrities that come into town, like Amy, and we just have all this stuff, right? And then, we're showing up and we're cutting bagels and we're giving coffee and we're doing leads and we're doing all these things, right, for our recovery, for all of you all, for all of us. But then it's so easy for a drunk like me to go home and forget and not take care of what's under my roof. That's taken a lot of growth, a lot of awareness, a lot of therapy, a lot of sponsorship, sponsoring other guys. I sponsor a lot of straight people that are married, and it is crazy how much that has helped me with my relationship. And that's no dig on anybody, but I'm just it's just when people are in those committed relationships, and you hear the trials and the struggles and all of that type of stuff, and I'm able to share my own experience of things that I've grown through and under my roof that says, recovery doesn't stop when I walk out this door. This program doesn't stop when I'm, across the table about to get paid for a job that I'm doing. I try to take recovery everywhere with me. And if I keep recovery at the forefront of my life, prayer, meditation, recovery, my relationship under my roof, and then work, and then, taking care of my body and doing all those type of things. If I have my priorities in line, and they're not my priorities, they're the priorities that have been suggested to me, right, that I've learned through working the steps, coming to the rooms, and listening to other people talk, my life just kind of flows. It just flows. I'm not scared to be alone. I'm not scared to be broke. I'm not scared to die. All those things, right, that used to really freak me out when I wasn't sober and wasn't working a spiritual program, I was always just afraid. And I'm not afraid anymore. And the best gift that I've been given in sobriety is just a sense of peace. I can lay my head down at 2 o'clock every day and fall asleep in seconds and take an hour nap and wake up like a freaking rock star. I love that. I was it's like my drug. And, when I sleep at night, it's just so, I'm just at peace. And I wake up in the disease, of course, but then I immediately have to do my readings, connect to people in recovery, pray to God, and just do the stitches, right? You'll hear a lot of people say, just do the next stitch, do the next right thing. If I just do the next right thing, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be a dick that day if I'm just going to do the next right thing. So thank you guys for this opportunity, and I can't wait to hear the next speaker. And thank you all for being here. Paul, alcoholic.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Okay. Now, our main speaker will share her experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Amy D. from Kentucky.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Amy Spain Duncan. I am an alcoholic. Hey, Zoom guys. I don't know what to do with this. Okay, we're just going to set this down here. Hi, my friends from Lancaster. My sobriety date is March 6th of 2010. On Wednesday, I celebrated 13 years of sobriety. That's a miracle. My friend Peter says my sobriety date is when grace and desperation collided. And I think that might be true. I don't know how desperate I was. I was desperate to stop being in trouble. I was desperate to actually really, truthfully, I probably wanted to die more than anything. Because I was at that place where I couldn't imagine a return from how far I'd gone. Right? And we talk about in our literature, no matter how far down the scale we have gone. But I felt like, that was good for good and decent folks like you. But I saw myself as lower than that. And I did not see a path back from where I was. And if there was a path back, it would probably be way too hard for me. So death just seemed like the easiest and best solution for me. And it's crazy that tonight I'm with my friends and I'm happy. And that's just a program of Alcoholics Anonymous in action in my life. I'm a low bottom drunk, and that's just where alcohol took me. So I mean, obviously, my mom was a bank executive. My stepfather ran factories. He had 3 degrees in engineering. He worked for DuPont. I went to private schools. I had every opportunity to be successful. They thought I was really smart when I was little, and they put me in classes for, smart kids. I didn't want to be there. Those kids were nerds, man. And I really wanted to be cool. And it's hard to be cool when you're me, because I played trombone and I had buck teeth and my hair was stringy, but I wanted to be cool. I grew up watching Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, and I always wanted to be Pinky Tuscadeli because she was the only girl the Fonz ever loved, And she did Demolition Derby, and she had this cool little hand thing she did, and that's who I wanted to be when I grew up, right? I didn't want to be Shirley. I wanted to be Laverne. I didn't want to. I was always attracted to the outlaws and the rebels, and that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be with who I thought in my mind were the cool kids, And my mom was sending me to private schools, and those guys didn't have stepdads, and there. It was a little country town where Paul and I are from. There's a sign that says population 85, and me and him are here, but I guess the other 83 are there tonight. I don't know, but their dads were tobacco farmers, and they drove school buses, and their moms were stay-at-home moms. And my mom was a bank executive. And when I came home, nobody was there. And that was unheard of in there. And I loved to go home with the other kids, ride the bus to their house because their mom was going to be home. And my mom would show up to my ball games in her business suit. And I used to remember I was ashamed of that because, she was a banker. And so she looked like a banker because she came after work. And I'd be embarrassed and ask her to change clothes before she comes in because she didn't look like the other moms. And every opportunity was given me. And I was defiant. I just rebelled against it. I started dating the boys from the public school because there were only 11 kids in my class. So, in the little Catholic school, there was only 11 people in the graduating class, and I'm a fast girl. I'm fast. I'm a fast girl, and they were not. And so they were a little scared of me, right? And I get that now. So I had to find a crowd that I could keep pace with, or that could keep pace with me, and so that's where I started dating the boys from the public schools. They were fast too, and I got introduced to alcohol in junior high. And I've got grandkids that are that age, and it's like, whoa. I was really fast. I should not have been doing that at that age, but it made me feel so good. Man, and I drank whiskey. We're from the country. We didn't, you drank whiskey from the bottle and bonfires and guns and trucks, and I loved all of that. This weird thing would happen, though, when I would drink. I got real rageful, and I don't know where that came from, but a switch would flip inside me, and I would get very violent and aggressive, and would hurt I didn't hurt me. A spiritual realm, it was painful, but physically I was hurting other people, mostly, not me. and I love to fight. I've learned that anger and aggression, all that, it's a false sense of power. Right? Because when I'm mad is a lot easier for me than scared. And mad, it feels better than sad. Sad feels vulnerable. But angry, that feels powerful and that feels tough. And so I would go into these rages and that, I was hard to hang out with. Because, I might beat you up. And so I was always having to find new people to hang out with. My mom sent me to an all-girl Catholic high school. Wasn't that sweet? Because she thought that'd be good for me, and maybe the nuns would, and I would slow down and not be so fast. And I did not. But when I got there, those girls were like, we don't drink and we don't smoke and we don't kiss boys. And I said, well, neither do I. That's silly. Who would do that? That'd be weird. But really, that was the first time I remember lying to you about me. I made a conscious decision that you would not accept me as I was. And at 14 years old, I began to lie to you about who I was. And I started to know that there was parts of me that I needed to keep hidden. There were parts of me that I could never let you know about. There were things about me that would cause shock and awe in normal people, and I began to recognize that difference. And so I had to find people like me, and we find each other. But I had to find people like me. My dad said I always look for a place where my unacceptable behavior would be acceptable. And that's where I need to be. I can't have you looking at me like that, you know? So I had to find people who were doing worse things than me, or at least the same. But even in those circles, my behaviors are absurd and tragic. And I ended up changing high schools 4 times. We never moved. My dad wasn't in the military. That is not what happened. I can't get along with you. Girls get very upset if you sleep with their boyfriends. In case you all don't, I'm just putting that out there. That's a little free information. They're very sensitive to that. And I didn't want their boyfriends. I really didn't. I have this weird thing where I can't be in relationships. Like I have where I never needed you to be my boyfriend. Like I figured there were lots of you. I would just get another one. It was like fine. And but it caused problems, and I couldn't have female friendships. So I decided I didn't want them. But that's not true. But that's what I had to tell myself, that I didn't want to be friends with you all anyway, right? That's the lie I had to tell myself, because I couldn't be friends with you because I didn't know how to be friends with you, right? Because I thought I was unacceptable to you. I ended up graduating high school. I had really good grades. In Kentucky, they've got this rule, which I think is silly, but apparently you have to have enough days attendance to graduate. And I felt like I passed all the classes and I didn't even have to be here. So maybe a special award was in store for me. Like you could put a star on my diploma because I didn't even have to be here. But my mom went, she's a little gangster too. I've never asked any questions. She had a conversation with some people, and I graduated, and that's all we're gonna talk about that. I'm like, God, I don't know what you did, Mama, but they let me walk. And about 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Sarah, and I thought that's what it is. That's I'm gonna be a good mom. I'm gonna be a good mom to my kid, and everything's gonna be okay. And I don't need friends, and I don't need boyfriends, and I don't need any of you, and I'm just gonna take care of my daughter. Except that I'm an alcoholic, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm putting something in my body every day to feel different than I do, and I've been doing this since I was 15 years old. It didn't stop because I had a baby. Babies don't fix alcoholism. It didn't matter how much I loved her. It didn't matter how much she loved me. It didn't matter how much she needed me. Alcoholism will take motherhood from you. And I was so selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, dishonest, and full of fear, and very inconsiderate. And so what I wanted or what I needed still took precedent over her. And that meant men in and out of our house. That meant fistfights in the living room. That meant smoky, rooms, ashtrays. We used not to know that you weren't supposed to smoke, and we just all smoked all the time with the kids around and drinking. And I can remember waking up on the couch and seeing her at 2.5 years old, sitting in front of a console TV, and this picture in my head, she had a piece of bologna out of the refrigerator, and Sesame Street was on. And that was her breakfast, and that was her babysitter, was that TV. And that was the best I could do. But if you had said, you're not being a good mom, we would have had a fist fight. because I believed the amount of love is what made me a good mom, not my actions and behaviors. Not my actions and behaviors. I started working at a bar. We should all work at bars because that's great. And I started working at a bar, and it wasn't a nice bar. There were gunfights and knife fights and cigarettes, and I love that stuff. And there were 3 bands. There were 4 different rooms, and there was a different band in each room. And that was kind of cool because if I got in a fight here, I could just kind of go into the next room, blend in there, and then go to the next room. I did not go home when the bar closed. I stayed for the after party. My mom, thank God, my mom ended up caring for Sarah more than me, and that was good because she should have been protected from me. I started dating the bouncer because I like to fight and he likes to fight, and we would get drunk and fight each other. He was an ex-Marine. I think I can beat up a Marine when I'm drinking. I really do. I earnestly believe that. I cannot. In reality. But I will try. I will try to do that. And I did a fist up in 2010, put some victim thing about, how he was abusive and would hit on me. And she said, when you drank, Amy, you told me that you were violent and aggressive. I said, yeah, that's very true. And she said, full of rage. I said, yeah. She said, unpredictable. Absolutely. She said, was he ever defending himself? That's a new twist on that. And the truth is, in my inventory, he was, because I will stab you. I will hit you with objects. Like, you have to get me off of you because I'm here for the fight, and I won't let you not fight me when I'm ready to fight because I'm insane. I'm insane. And I would do that in front of my children. I got pregnant by him. He didn't want a baby. He moved to Florida. I married his brother. I don't mean to skim over that. But just give you a minute. I had my mother-in-law on my fist up because she ruined my marriage, obviously. And my sponsor said, you don't see where you set the ball in motion on this one. I was like, no, I gave her beautiful children by all her sons. And that's a true story. I really thought that. I thought she should have been nicer to me. Because I married him and Led Zeppelin played through the chapel. I was sweating because he had asked me not to drink that day. And that's a red flag, when you have to say to the bride, please don't be drunk at the wedding. Because it was a 4:00 wedding. That's kind of late in the day for me. And I remember we were lighting the unity candle, and Led Zeppelin was playing, and I was sweating, and I had this big white veil. It looked like a Wiccan wedding. He had long hair and a big veil. I'm sweating, we're lighting candles, and I looked at him, I said, I need a beer. And he said, I know. And I think about those ominous warnings. I think about those signs, those things that were in place that nobody picked up on. How, and I didn't. So I hadn't connected the dots. Nothing about this seems bizarre to me. Like, I don't think it's abnormal that I need a beer in the middle of my wedding. I don't think it's abnormal that I had his baby and married his brother. I don't think it's abnormal that I drink every day. I don't think any of this is weird. I haven't connected the dots. I think my problems, I'm just partying. I'm just having a good time. I come from a family of heavy drinkers. They drink. They don't end up homeless. They take care of their kids and they go to work. That's not my story. When I drink, something different happens. He and I were married about a year into that marriage. He said, I'm going to take these kids and I'm leaving you. And I always laugh, I always tease him because everybody thinks they want a crazy girl until they're bleeding. Then it's not funny. It's not as funny anymore. But there's men who love crazy women. They're here for it. And thank God for them, or I'd have been single. I mean, nobody would have dated me. And then there's men who have, good sense, and they're like, nah, she's a little crazy, and they avoid me. But I was even too crazy for the guys that thought they liked crazy. And my dad had gotten sober when I was 18 years old. My dad died with 30 years of sobriety in this beautiful program. And he got sober on my 18th birthday. And I thought he retired from drinking. That's what I thought AA was, where you just like you drink and then you retire and you go to AA, you drink coffee, you talk to other retirees about when you used to drink coffee or drink, booze, whatever. But I called him up and I said, Dad, I think I got what you got. And my dad 12-stepped me. He textbook 12-stepped me. I'm so glad that he found you and that he found the literature and he found the solution and he knew how to present it. And after my dad 12-stepped me, he took me to a meeting and he turned me over to you. And he introduced me to a woman that was going to be my sponsor. This was in 1995. There was a lot of demonstration of these principles through action. Right, and that's what I'll say about AA in our area during that period of time. There was strong fellowship. There was tremendous amounts of service, and these men and women were walking out the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. They were not, however, reading the literature of Alcoholics Anonymous. Big book thumper was a derogatory term. They would say that to make fun of somebody, if they were a big book thumper, or, the book or whatever. And I was in with the folks that were doing the service and doing the love and tolerance and kindness and principles. And it was there and it was being demonstrated. And it probably wouldn't have mattered either way for me. But I ended up fading out of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I got about 3 years sober. What happens in AA is your life is going to get better. You stop drinking and your life's going to get better. That is just the end result of that. You're going to do better at work. You're going to find employment. You're going to have relationships. For me, we had 2 more kids. I had a job. We bought a bigger house. I got real busy. I'm a sober mom, and so sober moms need to be the PTA moms and the Girl Scout moms and the Boy Scout moms and the soccer coaches, and I was doing all of those things. I was doing all of those things because I'm sober now, and I'm going to be a good mom, and I'm going to be in my kids' lives. And there were a lot of them. There were 4 of them, so I was very busy. And what happens is I fade out of Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm too busy to come to Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm living this life that I got because I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a real alcoholic. And so what that means is for me that left untreated, I will drink again. Right? I will become irritable, restless, and discontent, and I will crave the ease and comfort that comes at once. And I will make the ultimate sacrifice. I did not think it was going to be as bad as it was. I hadn't read page 31. I hadn't read page 30. I hadn't read any of it. I had read the part of the chapter 5 that we read at meetings, but that was about the extent of my big book literature or knowledge about the disease of alcoholism. And I heard what people said, like to drink is to die and you can't drink again and all these things. But honestly, I was in my 20s and I thought I'd gone through a bad phase. It was a period where things had gotten out of control. But now, through you guys, I was praying. I like God, and God made weed, so I figured I'd just smoke some weed and then I'd be rocketed into the 4th dimension and everything would be fine. I was going to be a hippie so that I didn't beat people up. I had a big plan. I dug a fire pit. I bought a guitar. I planted a garden. I mean, I'm committed to doing this correctly. But I ended up drinking, right? Because when I smoke weed, my mouth gets really dry. And I thought, you know what, though, this is going so well. I could add alcohol just a little bit, and that it should not be a problem. And if it is a problem, I'll quit immediately. And I won't drink hard liquor, and I'll only drink beer, except when it's tequila and a margarita on Tuesday. Then you could because of, the whole thing. And anyway, all the self-deception, all the ways I tried to prove myself a normal drinker, non-alcoholic. And control and enjoy my drinking. This was going to open the door to 10 years of insanity in my life, right? So at 25 and 26, when I would see a woman like me get up to a podium, and she talked about prostitution, she talked about living on the streets, and she talked about abandoning her children. She talked about jails. I'd think, oh, that poor thing. I would become that woman because I didn't stay in my seat in Alcoholics Anonymous. And alcohol does what alcohol does. And alcoholism. after about a few years of drinking, we ended up divorced, me and him. And the world opened up and swallowed me whole. I started dating, my sister says I like them big and dumb. I started dating this biker guy, and he was huge, and everybody was scared of him, and that's the kind of guys I like to go out with. And we started running up and down the coast. We were doing a lot of illegal things, and it was getting, and he became my God, and I would leave the kids with my mom, and I would leave the kids with their dad and my visits, and I started breaking those promises, and I started not picking them up, and I started creating that distance between me and everything good. What the book calls this is the annihilation of all things worthwhile. So the marriage is gone. I'm backing away from my role as a parent because I'm chasing this guy. Right? I'm not working anymore because we're making more money doing this other stuff we're doing. The federal marshals were also interested in him, almost as much as me, and they picked him up in Ocala, Florida, and they sentenced him to 150 years. He'll die in a penitentiary in Branchville, Indiana. And when he got arrested, everything fell apart. The money was gone. We sold the guns. Like it just all fell apart. And I ended up trying to blot out the intolerable consciousness of my existence. And the noise was so loud in my head, and it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't stop. And I'm drinking whiskey from the bottle, you know, and I drive around with a bottle of whiskey in the car, and I'm just turning up. I just drink it straight. I don't even care anymore. I'm not eating. I can't pay my rent. I haven't had a job in over 2 years, and I live in my car. I heard a speaker in Nashville say one time, you know, alcoholics, we're crazy because we don't consider ourselves homeless if we have a car. And we'll even ask a guy like, hey, can I stay with you a few nights, you know, in his car? And that was me. I had a mobile. And this is before it was cool to live in your car or your van. Like, this was years ago. It wasn't cool then. But that's where I lived. I lived in my car, and I drove around. And then one day they towed my car. That was unfortunate. Now I'm literally homeless on foot, and everything I own is in that car, and it's in the impound lot, and I'm going to go get it tomorrow. But I got to get a drink today. And I'm going to get the money, and I'm going to get it out tomorrow, but I got to get a drink today. My daughter's, Sarah, on her 16th birthday, the news read a story that white woman's body found. And she spent her 16th birthday calling morgues and hospitals because it could have been me. That's the life I was living. And that's the fear and the sadness and the turmoil that I left my children in. I stayed out there for 4 years like that. I thought I was tough. I mean, I was out there with guys that had been living that way for 20 years. And I'm like, you're a soldier. Like, I got to tap out. 4 years, I was done. My teeth were falling out. I was losing my hair. I was like 50 pounds underweight. I still wanted to fight everybody, but I couldn't. Because, like, I was like kidding, you know, like I had no strength. I was like, this is getting dangerous. And my dad picked me up on March 6, 2010, off a street corner, and he took me to a homeless shelter that helped women. And I lived in a homeless shelter for a year. Something happened that day on March 6, 2010. I don't know what it was, and it wasn't me. Like I said, I wanted to die more than I wanted to get sober. But I just sat still. There was a surrender. There was a slight surrender to a process. And I remember looking at women with 6 months or 4 months or 90 days and thinking, if they could do it, maybe I could do it. If they could do it, maybe I could do it. And a woman with 14 years thought, you know, that was nice, but not for me. But that woman that had 90 days, that was obtainable, maybe. Maybe if I sat real still. If I did everything they told me to do. You know, and I remember we used to make a big deal about 6 months was half a cake. And I was like, maybe one day. I mean, these are my goals, you know, if I could. I just wanted to get a 6-month chip. And they gave me the book. They put the literature in my hand, and we used to study the book, and I became a student of the book, and like I became the big book thumper. Like I looked up words I didn't know. I wrote in the margins. I listened to my heroes break it down on tapes and CDs so that I could understand what they were saying, because things didn't make sense. I took a lot of hits to the head, and I was like, who's Walter Hagen? I have no idea who that is, but Bill seems to. I don't know what that means. And a boiled owl? Who boils an owl? And why would you boil an owl? Like, everything was confusing, but I would try to read it and understand it and listen to teachers and experienced members break it down, and I would go to big book studies and literature meetings, and I remember opening my book and reading There Is a Solution, and for the first time in years I just felt my eyes get wet because I had stopped crying a long time ago. But there is a solution that moved me. Like, I was like, oh, wait a minute, somebody has an answer for a wretch like me, for a problem drinker like me, for somebody who's burnt it to the ground in the way that I have. I didn't know if I'd ever talk to my kids again. I didn't know if I'd ever get a job. I didn't know if I'd ever move out of that homeless shelter. But I was sober, and that was enough. That's all I wanted to be. I was sober, and I had a little bit of hope. And that was enough. I was like 7-8 months sober, and the song came out. And it was a gospel song. I don't know how I heard it, but anyway, I heard it. And it was, there was to God, and it was like, if you never do anything else for me, you've done enough. And I remember being 7 months sober, sitting at a homeless shelter with no car and no job, halfway through my step work, and I thought that. Like, if my higher power never does anything else for me, he's done enough. Because I'm sober. I didn't have to drink today. I didn't rob anybody today. I didn't get harmed, and I didn't harm anybody. And that was enough. A simple gratitude for something. And they used to tell us, they didn't hype us up. They were like, yep, someday sober is all you get. I was like, that's enough. That's great. I'll take it. I'll take it all day, every day. I ended up moving out of that homeless shelter after about a year. And almost exactly to the day a year, and I got a place, and I had bought a little $400 car, and the liner was falling in. You had to hold it when you drove, and the windows didn't work. It was an old Ford Taurus, and we would pile 13 people in there, sitting on laps, laying over up in the back window, getting pulled over all the time. We're going to AA, officer, and like that, like they're supposed to let us go for that, and I just started. I didn't have anything else to do but AA. I wasn't busy. And I said yes to AA, and I would show up early, and I loved being with you. When I was with you, I was okay. The noise was quiet, and I was safe. I always think of that when somebody says, get your coffee and have a seat, we're going to have an AA meeting. My body goes, like that first drink of whiskey. It's that same feeling. Like, for 1 hour, I'm okay. 1 hour, the noise will quiet, and I can listen to something else. For 1 hour, I'm with you, and you're laughing. I always get confused, though, because you all pray the Our Father, and then you disappear into the mist. And I thought, where do they go? What do they do? What am I supposed to do? It's like, I got to get through the night. And so I love the meeting after the meeting, and I love looking for the woman who doesn't know where we go and inviting her to come along. Right? They would put on a second pot of coffee after the meeting for the guy who didn't have anywhere to go. That's the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous, That's where the love exists. These are fun, and we have a great time, but knee to knee, and I spend a lot of time back home in detox centers. I spend a lot of time in women's penitentiaries and jails and facilities, because those are my people. The mom who can't be a mom no more, that's my heart. I made amends. I went through the steps the best way I could the first time. I didn't like the second half of 11. I struggled with that, so we just skipped it. And I got busy 12-stepping women, but without the second half of 11, it really kind of looks like 12-stomping women. Because I'm not meditated, I'm not in touch. There's like no Zen, so it's just all violence and aggression. And like, you want to live or you want to die. The book tells me on to the next one, I don't sugarcoat nothing, And they told me that the truth without compassion was just mean. And that's me. I'm mean. I'm mean, and I don't care if I hurt your feelings. I don't have feelings, and so I don't think you should. I still try to be that Billy Badass. I still try to put on this tough girl persona. But what was happening was I was losing jobs. People were calling the police because I'm scary and I'll threaten you. And because when I'm fearful, I become like a caged animal. And when I did my first fears inventory, honest to God, spiders and snakes. I had no idea how riddled with fear I was. I truly believed I wasn't scared of anything. And they were like, "You're scared of everything." I said, "Why would you say that?" And they said, "Because you got your dukes up. And only a person who's terrified walks around in a defensive position." I didn't know that everything about me said get away because inside I was terrified. I didn't know that, even about myself. But you start learning these things, and then in prayer and meditation, I started to find safety in my breath and safety with you, and I didn't have to walk around with my fist clenched. I didn't have to watch for the other shoe to drop. I didn't have to get you before I got some of that animalistic survival type of fight, fear, or flight, whatever they call it. Like, I was able to breathe. 5 years sober, I kicked in my neighbor's door and I threatened to kill everyone in that house, and I meant it. Absolutely meant it. I absolutely meant that I was going to set that house on fire that night. And it didn't feel okay. It didn't, and I really used to not have any problem hurting people. I felt you had it coming. You know, that was how I justified that. I heard a speaker in Chattanooga this last week and said, I felt entitled to my anger. You know, it wasn't just justified anger. I was entitled to it, and I was entitled to this, that I could treat you like crap. And it was just, you know, I was out there doing that. I called my sponsor, and I said, when will I quit doing this? And she said, when you work all of the steps, Amy. And I was driven into step 11. Because I couldn't stand, like, I was going to drink again or go to jail, which is probably what should have happened then. But I did not burn their house down, by the way. Everybody's fine. I called my sponsor, and no one was hurt. They did move shortly after that, but whatever. Yeah, it was bad. 10 years sober, my dad died, and it took the breath out of my body. Grief and sobriety. Grief is its own weird thing anyway, you know. And for the alcoholics, we don't like to feel bad. I don't like anything that's uncomfortable or painful. And I was able to honor my father and honor his life. I was able to find gratitude. I miss my daddy. That's never going to change. But through Alcoholics Anonymous, I know that I'm the luckiest girl in the world. I got to be his kid, and I'd pick him to be my dad over and over again. He was funny, and he was cool. I'm not cool. He was actually cool. He was actually a pretty cool guy, and he was funny, and he loved Alcoholics Anonymous, and he passed that on to me. And it's about love and service and saying yes. I made amends to my kids. I got grandkids that have never seen me drink. They think I'm the cat's meow, man. They do. They love Grandma Amy, and I love them. They know I'm going to be fair, and we're going to have a good time because that's what we do. I've gotten to have a relationship with all my kids. I parented from guilt. And fear. For a long time, it's not an effective way to parent, and it did not set, and it was unfair of me to give my emotional well-being to my children who are probably mentally ill and ask them to hold it. Yeah. Because, see, I can get crippled up behind their rejection. I can get crippled up behind their response. I can get crippled up because I am so attached to their approval and their forgiveness and my own guilt about the years that I wasn't there in the way that I wanted to be there as a parent. It took me a long time to get okay with that. And I'll tell you what happened. March of last year at 13 years sober, I'm flying home from a conference in Rochester, and my kids get mad because I said no, and they start unleashing on me. And they're coming at me, guns drawn, man. They're coming after who I was when I was drunk, and they're beating me up with my recovery. And I'm in a fetal position in an airport in Chicago. And I've never been so close to going to a courtesy phone and asking for a friend of Bill W. Because I thought I'm going to drink. I can't breathe. This hurts too bad. That pain, though, demanded some inventory. It demanded some work. It demanded some rest. It was so bad. My husband, who lived 6 hours away, told me to stay in the bathroom at the Midway Airport. Don't leave. And he was going to drive up and get me to get me home because I didn't know if I could make it from the bathroom to the gate. I thought I was going to be struck drunk. I'm talking about on your knees in sobriety, doubled over. With death or rejection or loss of relationships, how do we stay sober in this? I tell you what, I want to be sober more than I want to be drunk any day. The disease is not so elusive in my brain today that it could convince me that a drink would solve anything. I know that a drink will not fix anything. I know that it will shove me straight back into darkness, and I would rather put a bullet in my brain than take a drink. Because that kind of hell on earth, I can't live there anymore. I can never go back to that darkness and survive. I know that. I ended up calling people and getting on the plane. I made it home, and I had some work to do. And what I realized was I had asked my children, I had given my children the responsibility for my wellness, for my emotional wellness, and ultimately my sobriety, and that wasn't fair of me to ask them to hold that, and they're not capable, and I don't want to hold your wellness. I'm barely hanging on here. What am I going to do with yours? I'll drop it. And that's what I had done. I had set that up. So again, I'm moving into 6 and 7. I'm doing the inventory. I'm looking at my character defects, my shortcomings, the fears that are driving me. Right? And then I'm doing that 11th step in prayer and meditation, and then I get busy trying to help somebody else. More times than not, service to others has always saved the day. And I'm not talking about this. This is fun. I'm talking about going into the detox. I'm talking about picking up the woman who lives 20 miles on the other side of town, but she doesn't have a ride to a meeting. I'm talking about staying after with the woman that doesn't know where we go after 9 o'clock. Making sure she gets home and she's got a number to call. And not just giving her my number, but getting hers. Because I can call her too. I don't have to wait for her to call me. Because sometimes that phone's heavy and they don't know what to say. So I can just call her and say, hey, just checking up on you. It was nice to see you the other night. Where are you going tonight? Do you need a ride? Right? This is my life today. I have my own business. I'm married. I have a home. I have these beautiful kids and grandkids. I actually have 2 cars now instead of one, and the ceiling is intact. It's pretty nice. I have teeth. I bought teeth. I have hair. I got some hair. I've cleaned up a lot since I got here in 2010. But I didn't do anything. I followed directions. And I say yes to Alcoholics Anonymous. They say, Amy, can you come early and make the coffee? I say, yes. Amy, can you give that girl a ride home? Absolutely. Amy, can you take a media H&I commitment into Dismas on Wednesday nights? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I say yes to Alcoholics Anonymous. Everything good in my life springs from here. Everything good in my life, even my good jobs, it's because of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I get to go on vacations with my family. My mom and I did not get along. And I would have told you because she's judgmental and she's this, and we've never gotten along. 3 years sober, my sponsor made me call her every Sunday. It was weird. And she thought it was weird too. She was like, why are you calling me? I'm like, AA thing. I don't have a bad mom. My mom had a bad daughter. When I became a good daughter, I got a really good mom. My sponsor told me to act as if, what would a good daughter do? A good daughter's going to show up. A good daughter's going to help clean. A good daughter's going to make the phone call. A good daughter's going to be kind. And I did that over and over again. And my mom's still nuts, and I love her. I mean, but now it doesn't make me mad. I'm just like, look at her. That's hilarious. My sister gets so mad at her. My sister loses her mind, and I'm like, yeah. She's fine. Who cares? I'll get you another Miller Lite. Sure, Mom. But I get to be a daughter to her, and I get to be in this relationship. I want to tell you, since last year, when that happened with my 2 youngest children, I didn't talk to my son for 8 months. And even drinking, I'd never gone that long without at least talking to my kids. And I threw myself in service. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to just stay in purpose, and I'm going to stay in service. And this last Christmas, we were all at my mom's, and my son said, Mom, I'm sorry for the way I talked to you. I said, it's okay, son. It's all right. You carry a lot of pain, and I get that. And sometimes, it just oozes out of us. And sometimes people get hurt when that happens. But I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm here for you. And he and I are starting to heal that relationship, and we're talking a little bit slowly over time. I always laugh. My mom was like, what are you going to do? The kids aren't talking to you. I said, they'll need me before I need them. I got the money. And they do. They're young adult. They need help, which I'm happy to give. But they did come back, and we do talk, and that's cool. That's cool. My life is tremendous. I'm tremendously blessed. I live a life beyond my wildest dreams. If you're new here, please stay. Come all the way in and sit all the way down. Read the literature. Get a sponsor. Do what people tell you to do, I had nothing left to lose, and I've gained everything in the world. That doesn't happen anywhere else. You got a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. Don't give up yours. Yeah.